We just did our first ride on this bike right here, the STOMP Haywire, and there was one question that came up more than any other, and that was battery range. The Haywire is a full-size electric dirt bike weighing around 250 pounds, making 21 kilowatts of power, and it's powered by a 74-volt, 50 amp-hour battery. STOMP claims up to 80 miles of range on their website, and judging by the comments in our first ride video, a lot of you weren't convinced. So today we're going to take the STOMP Haywire and run it through our standard ECR battery range test to see exactly how far this bike can go in the real world. All right, let's do this thing. We got the STOMP Haywire fully charged, and we're gonna see how far this thing can go. Clearly doing a trail ride today, and for that reason, also gonna ride the bike in trail mode. When we did our first ride, it felt like trail mode was an appropriate amount of power for where I was riding, so I'm gonna ride this full ride in trail mode. Whenever we do a range test here at ECR, I try to ride the bikes like I would normally ride. If I were to come up here and be riding with friends, I just try to keep it as real world as possible, and I'm gonna do that on the Haywire today. But I'm also gonna kind of ride this bike within the confines of what I think it is best suited for. Reason I say that is I don't feel like this is a race bike, so I'm not gonna ride it at race pace. I'm gonna ride it how I feel like it was intended to be ridden. Still gonna try to keep up my normal spirited pace, but not gonna ride in over my head or the bike's head today. Gonna try to just ride it where the bike feels comfortable. So if you watch any of our videos or you've seen our range test before, I always like to point this out. Everybody's different, everybody weighs different, everybody rides different paces. You gotta take that stuff into account. Some people like to go nice and slow like this and just enjoy a slow ride, but that's not how I ride. So if you are somebody that likes to ride like that, you're gonna see way more range than what I'm gonna get today. I'm not gonna call this the worst battery range you're gonna get. People could ride the bike harder. Definitely riding at MX, you're gonna see less range. Definitely riding it wide open, you're gonna see less range, but you can also probably expect to see much better range than this too. So just to confirm, yep, the bike is fully stock. Didn't change anything. I didn't put mooses in. I didn't change the tubes. This is exactly how the bike came to us. I did remove the rear blinker and license plate cluster from the bike because I'm not riding this bike on the street or anything. I don't need blinkers. I don't need a license plate, and I don't need that extra stuff just hanging off the back of the bike. So pulled that stuff off. But yeah, the rest of the bike is fully stock. I mentioned it in the first ride, and yeah, it's a wide bike up top, and that is because of the battery. You know, it sits, I'm not saying it's like unusual, but it does sit higher up in the bike and kind of in between the frame, and it's a little wide. So in between your knees, in between your ankles, the Haywire is a slightly large feeling bike there. I feel like the bike rides a little bit like the battery's up there too. It's nothing unusual, you know, the new Benell 902 has a similar feeling. So yeah, this is a full-size electric dirt bike, and it feels like one because you're straddling the battery like that. It's not as narrow as a bike like the Stark Varg. I know not many of you have ridden the Benell 902, but kind of has a similar feeling in terms of width. The 902 also has that kind of wide feeling, so I feel like Stormby kind of felt like that too. It's not like a fully unusual feeling, but it's something I noticed when I hop on the bike, so it's not fully lost on me. So yeah, if you watched our first ride video, kind of the theme of that video was bang for your buck and affordability. and that is definitely the attribute of the STOMP Haywire. It is a pretty killer price point and a full-size bike. You get kind of a lot of bang for your buck. And yeah, I did scroll through some of the comments on the first ride and try to remember some of those and maybe address some of the comments. Seems like it was well received. You know, I think it's nice to see bikes like this come out that have affordability in mind. It's really surprising and impressive that you can make a motorcycle like this for that price. I think it's kind of come to be that people like expect bikes to just be this cheap all the time, and I'm not really in agreement of that. Like, kind of knowing what it takes to get a motorcycle into production and materials costs and getting these bikes overseas, getting them to the customer, like, man, there's a lot that goes in to making these bikes, and the expectation that all these bikes should be so cheap is just misinformed, in my opinion. So when you see a bike like this that is full size, it's got a lot of great parts and attributes, it's surprising to me that these bikes can be as cheap as they are, right? We all know what things cost in the year 2026, so I'm always a bit shocked when I see price point bikes like this. Yeah, back to your comments. Trying to think. Obviously, I mean, we're always gonna do a battery range test video no matter what, but it definitely seems like a lot of people are interested in what the number is gonna be, so clearly we're addressing all of those comments now. Sure, the battery is a bit smaller than I think people would like, but then again, man, look at the price of this thing. Like, it's crazy. Crazy what you're getting for the price. You can't expect Stark Varg size batteries in a bike this price, in my opinion. And I did see somebody mention like the Arctic Leopard EXE 880. Probably a fairly comparable bike to this, really, in terms of like design, but yes, that bike has a much bigger battery. But last I checked, the price was also much higher on the EXE 880. I know that they dropped the price a bit, but I'll fact check myself and give you an answer there, but I think it's probably pretty appropriate for the bike that you're getting here. And I'll say this too, you know, Stomp has mentioned that this is their first foray into electric. They're not just gonna end here, you know? Like, I expect that we're gonna see more to come from this brand, for whatever it's worth. Yeah, so comparing it to EXE 880, design-wise, the way the bike feels, yeah, probably pretty similar bikes. Trail bikes don't seem like they want to get pushed too hard. A lot of bang for your buck. Probably the closest bike to the STOMP Haywire would be that EXE 880 or the Sur-On Stormby, which I feel like we never hear about the Stormby anymore. I don't even know what's going on with that. I don't know. You just don't see it very often. So those are probably the two bikes I'd compare STOMP Haywire to. Back to your comments. What else was it? Oh, one guy, I don't know if he said he wrote it or maybe saw it in another video, but like the weight bias of the bike, feeling maybe a bit front heavy and asking if I felt that. I will say this. I'll start by saying I weighed this Haywire with two scales, one on the front wheel, one on the rear wheel. So yeah, the bike weighs 250 pounds, and that 250 pounds was spread evenly front and rear, 125 front, 125 rear. About as close to 50-50 as you can get. But speaking of the battery does sit, you know, up a little high in the bike, and then when you put the battery in the bike, it lays forward. So it's definitely driving some weight towards the front of the bike, and then you pair that with what I called out in the video. It's definitely softer suspension. Now that fork is responsible for handling a lot of those forces, and maybe it needs a little bit more heft if you're riding the bike like that. So that's not lost on me. I will say I am feeling that, but I'm just kind of calling a spade a spade. I just think this is an enduro trail bike, and it just feels like one to me. One last thing I'll throw into the mix. on that front end feel is never really know what type of tire they're speccing. Like, I'm not familiar with so many of these tires that come on these bikes. They're just like not necessarily name brands, so it's like it's hard to know what the compound is and how stiff the sidewall is. It could be that the front tire is getting a little overwhelmed with all that weight too, folding over. It's kind of hard to tell for me because we have so many loose rocks up here. Sometimes it's kind of hard to pinpoint if it's terrain moving or tire movement, but probably experiment with some more tires that we're familiar with and see if that changes the feel of the bike at all. But anyways, your point's not lost on me. This is loose, rocky stuff, guys. I know the camera doesn't pick it up. Just so you know, we're doing the normal ride up here, the full thing, putting it through all the different stuff. Faster, flowy, single track, super slow, chunky, rocky stuff, going up it, going down it. We're doing it all. But yeah, it's hanging tough, man. The bike feels good. It just feels like a capable full-size trail bike. Yeah, I'll also disclose at the end here the elevation change. I know it's like impossible to see on the POV camera, but like I am climbing right now. We are gonna get some vertical. Everything just always looks flat in these videos, but I can assure you the Rocky Mountains are not flat. So there is elevation being gained and lost throughout this ride. So take that into account too. So there was another comment, another viewer was asking like comparison wise, Arctic Leopard XE Pro R compared to this bike. And in a way, like I drew a similarity between those two bikes in the first ride video, but it kind of like begins and ends there. Like I could compare and contrast the two bikes, but there's very little to compare and pretty much everything to contrast because they're just like very different bikes. I think the point that I was trying to make when I brought up the XE Pro R is, well, first off, they both have great brakes, so that was one thing that I wanted to say. Secondly, it was just like riding both of those bikes. I had been on the Varg a bunch lately and our Built Ultra B a bunch lately, and then I got on both the Arctic Leopard XE Pro R and then this Stomp Haywire, and I was like, cool, I'm just gonna like continue to ride at that pace that I've been riding at for weeks. And I was quickly reminded, like, ooh, they don't love to go that pace. Like those bikes that I just mentioned are bikes that, yeah, they're like built to kind of go fast, and they can handle kind of way more than I can throw at them. But the Leopard and the Haywire, they both feel like in a way kind of casual trail bikes, you know? It's like I'm not saying they can't be ridden hard and can't be ridden fast, because they can, but like I just don't feel like they're most at home going fast. Like they just kind of like a moderate trail pace, and that's great. I mean, I feel like that's what the bikes are designed for, and it's good to know what the bikes are designed for. So that is probably the closest similarity I could pull between those two bikes. Everything else is super different, man. Aside from brakes and like wheel size being the same, it's like XE Pro R is a really lightweight, small chassis. It's a small little bike, like, and this bike is full size. It's got a roomier cockpit. It is definitely heavier by a pretty big margin. Power feel, like the XE Pro R is faster, but like not by a crazy amount, or just like, I don't know, how usable is that power? Like people love to be like, talk about specs, like, oh, that thing's faster. It's like, well, what are you doing with it, man? Because I doubt you're using that power. I've been on some pretty low kilowatt bikes and had a lot of fun on them, and oftentimes I'm going faster when the power modes are down. So food for thought. Those were the YouTube comments that stuck out to me, at least. I'm sorry if I missed yours. I'll try to look back and address some other ones. If I did miss it, I do feel like overwhelmingly Just a lot of talk about battery and battery range, and we're doing that part of the video right now. Okay, time for the 50% battery check-in. The battery's rating 50%, so we've gone through the top half of the battery. My GPS is telling me that we've gone 12.6 miles right now. So that is the halfway check-in. I always like to just kind of point out midway through the ride what I'm experiencing, and we'll gauge the second half of the battery now. Keep on rolling, and yeah, 12.5 for the first 50. So let's see what the next 50 brings us. Yeah, so halfway through the battery, just to relay to you guys, yeah, sentiment is still the same. It just feels like a good bike, man. It's a nice full-size bike for the price. My thoughts haven't really changed from the last video, kind of just reinforcing it. I think this is going to be a good bike for a lot of people. All right, we're in the high 20s for battery percentage right now, and starting to feel just ever so slightly decreased power in trail mode. Very common. All these bikes have a bit of fall off once you get kind of low in the battery in terms of the power delivery. So I'm just gonna keep riding it in trail. Just wanna ride this entire ride in trail mode, but don't be confused. I'm not saying that it's slow. Lean into it, here it rips. There you go. Just prove my point, but yeah, just the throttle hand is feeling a little bit of that decrease of power. But we're getting close. We're in the 20s. It won't be long before I have a result for you. So we're gonna talk all things battery today on the STOMP Haywire. Another question that was asked that I wanna address is battery removal on the STOMP Haywire. So it's super easy. You've got your key that powers the bike on here. You've just got this latch here. Turn the key 180, and then the seat basically just pops off like that. Once you have your seat off, you can just pop this red handle up right here. This latch releases, and then it's super easy just to pull your battery out from there. I'm gonna leave it in the bike, but I just wanna show you the design of the STOMP Haywire, and just know that this bike does have a removable battery, and it's a really easy one to remove at that. Okay, we have a final number. Before I give it to you, I do wanna preface this. I often hear from you guys about what type of battery range that you're getting whenever I post mine. And oftentimes you guys are getting a lot more than I am getting. I do feel like that's partially terrain and partially the pace that I'm riding the bikes at. So my numbers are often less than what I'm hearing the bikes are capable of. So take that with a grain of salt. When I'm giving you a number, it's at my normal kind of ride pace. If you were to go out and ride a bit more mellow, you would get more range than these numbers that I give. So with that out of the way, how did the STOMP Haywire do for the battery range test? We rode it in trail mode. We are just below 10% right now. My theory for ECR range tests is we're just gonna ride the bikes until they're no more fun to ride in terms of the amount of power that they're giving you. So I am just below 10% right now. It is time to get this thing back to home or back to the vehicle. And I have gone 24.5 miles. So in terms of elevation gain and loss, I was able to ride the STOMP Haywire 4,095 feet of ascent and 4,085 feet of descent. Pretty on par with what I was expecting out of this bike, potentially even better than what I was expecting.
So where does the STOMP Haywire stack up to other bikes that we've tested? For reference, here's a chart of battery range that we've seen at similar pace in similar terrain.
If you're somebody that rides a bit more mellow, you're gonna take it easier on this bike. I do think that you could see range numbers in the 30s. However, the pace that I'm just riding, my normal pace, 24.5 miles. So I think that battery range is totally acceptable given this bike, given the weight of this bike, the battery that's in it, the price of the bike. Let me know if you agree. Do you feel like this is an acceptable range for this bike? I want to hear about it. Let me know what else you want to see on the Stomp Haywire and we'll make it happen. Thanks for watching. See ya.